This episode of Reality Escape Pod is brought to you by Morty, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, Buzzshot, and Patreon supporters like you. Hey, escape room owners! Are you sick of trying to figure out the marketing puzzle? Buzzshot's got you covered. It's an all-in-one solution for powering business growth and improving the customer experience. They offer a ton of pre- and post-game features, including waiver management, creating incredible branded team photos, and streamlined review management for Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google Reviews, Facebook Reviews, and they offer integrations with Cogs and Morty.
One of the key features about Buzzshot doesn't even seem like a feature at all, and that is reliability. Their uptime is phenomenal, and they are easy to work with. We've said this before, we'll say it again. The reliability of Buzzshot is a core feature of why you can feel confident when you build parts of your business on top of their software.
And I'll tell you that the reliability is even more important when you're operating multiple locations. Buzzshot just introduced a new feature called account switching, which lets you quickly switch between the different locations and multiple Buzzshot accounts, so you can make your workflow that much easier. Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. REPOD listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/REPOD, that's REPOD, to learn more.
Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm David Spira, alongside my co-host, PG Law. Together, we're exploring immersive gaming from all angles, and we'll be joined by guests who really know their stuff. Today's guest is Brook Breit. Brooke is a creative director and product manager with Jackbox Games. Whether it's in game design or on stage performing improv, she is always bringing comedy and collaboration to her creations. Welcome, Brooke.
That was the most beautiful introduction I have ever, like comedy and collaboration. I was not expecting it, and I appreciate it, and I love it.
Thank you.
Every season, we have a bit of an out-of-the-box guest because this is ostensibly a podcast for escape room enthusiasts. And when I had suggested you and Jackbox as the outlier guest, it seemed to fit. And actually, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Jackbox Games and escape rooms have quite a bit in common. You know, as we already mentioned, there is definitely a spirit of collaboration. There's a lot of creative brainstorming, and they're all just about having fun together as a group. And it seemed really fitting, actually. But for those who are unfamiliar, can you explain what is Jackbox Games?
Absolutely. And yeah, I think there is such a strong connection of it. They are social. They're social games. They're party games. So we are a gaming company out of Chicago, Illinois. We've been making party games, and specifically we've released 10 party packs, which are collections of 5 games that we have sold for years now, trying to scratch different itches for different types of games for people. So we make trivia games, we make drawing games, we make guessing games, comedy games where you're trying to out-joke each other. We really do try to spread our wings in what types of games we do, and are continuing to try to iterate and see what we maybe haven't done yet that could be explored. But yeah, there is a strong connection between the social nature of working together to solve an escape room and also a party game, throwing on like a 20 to 30-minute game with your friends just to kind of lighten the mood, have something to do that you can all talk about afterwards.
From a history standpoint, Jackbox Games is an offshoot of the 1995 game You Don't Know Jack, which was one of the most 90s edgy games that I can recall, a true icon of the Windows 95 era.
Yes.
How does the spirit of You Don't Know Jack influence the work that Jackbox Games does today?
For one thing, it's amazing when you look at the makeup of the company. I joined in, I think it's 2018. So I was hired as a writer for Party Pack 5, which was You Don't Know Jack full stream. So it was one of the times that we brought back You Don't Know Jack. So my writing packet in applying for this job was writing You Don't Know Jack questions, which is its own thing. Writing trivia questions is one thing, but then having that, what's the premise? What's the spin? What's the joke? There's multiple layers to writing a You Don't Know Jack question.
In a very specific voice.
Yes, absolutely. But it's funny. It's like when you get to know some of the editorial staff, like internally, we can tell whose jokes are whose, because it is a collective comedy voice, but then you can definitely hear the individuality come out in the kind of tone, or somebody taking something in one direction. Or for You Don't Know Jack full stream, one of the writers that got hired at the same time that I did had written a Frasier question in her packet. And then because of that, we were just like, oh, we're just going to do a whole Frasier episode. We're all in on Frasier now, because why not? That's making us laugh. And there's a lot that we do, I think, internally that we're like, are we having fun? Are we laughing? And then you have to then push it outwards and go, do we think other people are going to have fun and laugh with this too? And that's always the kind of double test of it. It's like, we're having fun, and then doing that check on, is this just funny to us, or is this something that we do think also everyone else will enjoy? And it's usually what we aim for, is that level. But yeah, that sensibility is still there. It's rooted in Chicago comedy, and Tom Gottlieb, who's the voice of Cookie Masterson, still works at the company and is a part of the editorial staff, as well as voicing a lot of our games. So a lot of the same people are still with the company that were with it from the very beginning.
I want to note also that one of the things that I think made Jackbox Games such a phenomenon was the cleverness in letting players use their own smartphones as a controller. For me, that's really a hallmark of a Jackbox game. It's not like going over to a friend's house and you want to play video games together and, oops, I've only got 2 controllers, so everyone else has to sit and watch while 2 people play. And so that really is, I think, what catapulted into a party game, because truly, like, if you have 10 people over, all 10 people can play, on their phones. And I thought that was just such a smart move.
Absolutely. First of all, do you want to work in our marketing department? Because that was the greatest pitch for it. But it's true. I think the accessibility, in the sense of only one person needs to own the game, and they're available on Steam or Nintendo or Xbox or any digital platform that you want to play it on, that you buy the game. And then exactly that, everybody just joins through. It's not even an app, it's a website. We go to jackbox.tv, put in the room code, and then you're in the game. So we have folks that play on iPads, phones, browsers, whatever device you have available. And again, most of our games like accommodate different player counts. Like we always aim for that 8, some of them 6, some of them 10. We have bracketeering goes up to 16, and then an audience as well. So depending on if you're streaming the game, like people can participate. That's the fun part too, is I love like when we launch a pack or we launch a product, jumping onto Twitch and watching people stream our games, because number one, we learn so much where we're like assuming something's going to work a certain way, and then it's in the hands of not me. And I'm like, oh, okay. that for better or worse, that's different than what I thought. It's exciting, and you can apply that to the next process, like development process, and learn a lot from it just being in the hands of players. But yeah, we're watching it with these big streamers that have huge audiences of people joining and participating, to even smaller groups. It's so satisfying to watch it be a very appealing game to different kinds of people.
On a related subject, I want to share a Jackbox Games story with you. I've been dying to tell you this since the moment we booked. So my wife, Lisa, and I, we run escape room tours. It's a core part of Room Escape Artist's business. We take groups of 36 to 70 people to destinations with incredible escape rooms. A few years back, one of our tours had an unseasonably early hurricane pass through it. We adapted and delivered a full tour for everyone who made it, and it ended up being a great time in spite of and because of the hurricane. When the weather was at its worst we had decided to turn a number of hotel rooms into rooms for X. So one person's room became the room for jigsaw puzzles. Another person's was the room for tabletop escape rooms. Another was the room for board games. And people could drift between these rooms. And we even set up a little paper catalog so that everybody knew what rooms they were in the event that we lost power. We didn't lose power. But we planned this through. One of those rooms, and I'm pretty sure it was my hotel room, became the most popular one because it was the Jackbox Games room.
Amazing.
And I barely got to play because my wife and I were both busy reworking schedules and logistics and accommodating all of the changes that we had to make due to the storm. But I have this joyous memory of having all of this fun going on around me while I was working about as hard as I've ever worked in my life. And just looking up from time to time and being like, I'm so happy everyone is having a good time. No one should be having a good time right now, but they're all having a good time.
I love that.
There's nothing like a disaster to bring people together.
I mean, again, we got so much love after the pandemic of people just expressing to us like how much it meant during that time that there was a way to connect, a way to play and be social despite an impossible time. And so I hear that hurricane story and I think of the same thing. It does bring me joy to get to work on something that I know is a vehicle for people to get together and just be together. That's awesome.
That is literally what got me through the quarantine era, because I started up a whole Discord. I was streaming a bunch of games, including Jackbox Games, social deduction games. And let me tell you, it was like the best time of my life, actually, getting to connect with everybody through it.
Absolutely. It got us through it as well, because like we were making games, and part of the process of making party games is playing party games. So like we're playing them all the time together to just figure it out. Absolutely same. Got us through it as well.
On that subject, did the pandemic change the way that you design games? Was there anything positive that came out of this for Jackbox beyond what I imagine is actually a considerable amount of money?
It was definitely a very good year, I think, for that purpose. But no, I think it's an evolving product. And I think due to the nature of the world becoming more hybrid, we're a hybrid office. We have a lot of meetings in person, but mostly online. And that has remained to be true to this day. And so we really do try to design games that are playable in the room and online. And I think that was something that was already naturally happening, but there's certain games that are easier to play probably in person maybe than online. And so when we're designing games, especially from that period forward, that's always talked about, of just how are people playing them, and knowing that was a very real way that people were and are continuing to play them. Because again, it was like the onlineness was already there through people streaming the games, but then knowing that that was not like
It was no longer secondary.
Yeah, it was, we need to have tools for that. But then it's also just the nature of the world right now that things are very flexible in a wonderful way that I think that we learned. You can work from different places. You can still be accessible. You can still do the things that you do in person online. So we definitely thought about that in our future development. It wasn't a huge change. It was just sort of like thinking about it or maybe investing a little bit more in it.
So in that vein, we have a few questions about life and production at Jackbox Games. I'm really curious, what does being a game director entail? What does that mean?
So it's interesting. It depends on who you talk to, too, because we have a stable of people who fall into game directors. Some of them come from editorial, some of them come from engineering. The culture of the company is very much that good ideas come from everywhere. So starting from pitching a game, anybody at the company is allowed and encouraged to play test and pitch game ideas. So they're not coming from like a specific department. It's like across the board. If you've got an idea, like we want to hear it. We want to play around with it. So game director, like what I've done in the past couple of years, moving from writing to editorial to directing, is overseeing the production of a game, especially from the creative aspect. So working hand in hand with a producer who is more the nuts and bolts of scheduling and making sure we're on time and reaching our goals. The director is setting about to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the design and the creative vision of that game. So we always have these game teams that consist of a lead artist, a lead audio, engineering, infra, which is controller-based stuff, because we have two different engineers on our teams. We have the gameplay engineer and then the controller, Jackbox.tv engineer working together. So this whole team, like we meet and have design meetings, and then the role of the director is to really lead that. So it's not to come in and say, everyone has to do my idea, but it's also, I like personally to come in with strong ideas and then say, what does everybody else think? And then if someone else has a better way of doing it, it's like, we're absolutely going to do that. It's very organic in that way, that we all agree on what are the pillars of the game, what are the things that we want to achieve, and then check back on that with a lot of our design decisions and just make sure it gets across the finish line in time.
Before we dig more into the process of making games, Jackbox Games seems like it has deliberately chosen to avoid the massive team and scope creep that has felt endemic to the video game industry. Is there a leadership and management philosophy underpinning this, or am I just completely off base?
I think we definitely strive to keep things within reasonable scope and really try to have a healthy workplace environment, especially knowing that we have a very quick development cycle. Things are created like within the year. You know, as soon as we release something, we're jumping on to the next thing and really digging into it. So compared to probably bigger studios who maybe have a multi-year process, like we're turning over things pretty quickly. And by nature of that, we do really need to keep the scope tight and make sure that it's something that is achievable within that amount of time. Also knowing, again, that there's something nice about freeing yourself from trying to make it too big or too complicated, because they are meant to be very accessible, quick, fun. So a lot of our attention is on, maybe there is a fun world element to the game, but knowing that people just want to get into the game and play the game. So it's like, what's the easiest in without having to fill it with too many things or features that might not serve the mechanic that we've created. Personally, again, when I've worked on certain games, that kind of builds where we start talking and we're like, but what if we could do this? And it's always then asking the question, we could do it, but should we do it? Like, is that going to actually help the game?
The Ian Malcolm question.
Oh my gosh, it really is. And I will attempt to try to like compare myself to Jeff Goldblum as much as possible. Yeah, just should we? And sometimes that is, we should. Like, it's a cool feature. It's something that's really going to benefit the game that we do have the scope and the time for. And then other times it's, no, this actually isn't. It's just adding more stuff. And I think that the company has done well to keep a mind on that, to be like, again, what's the thing? It's very improv adjacent. Get in and make sure that people have the tools that they need to be successful and feel successful at what they're doing. And that's the main goal.
That's what David does for us, because I have 10,000 ideas that I constantly want to implement. And David's like, whoa. Let's take a second.
Sure. Those are great ideas. And that's the thing. It's like, they're all great ideas. It's like, what should we do?
It's funny because the rest of the Room Escape Artist team is pretty much doing that to me.
100%. I can't even imagine.
I'm curious, what makes a good inclusion for the pantheon of Jackbox games? When you look at something, are there like certain elements or characteristics that you're like, these are the hallmarks?
I think there's a humor element that feels pretty essential to the brand, that there's something about it that is making people laugh, whether it's the context or what's being put in or the questions. There's something that's having people laughing. That seems like a hallmark. And then again, just being able to jump in and figure it out, that you shouldn't have to have a huge knowledge of gaming or having ever played a Jackbox game before to hopefully figure it out. Sometimes it takes one game through and then you're like, now I get it, and you can jump in and play another one. But I think that really feels like so much of what makes it what it is. A thing that I believe is that we set players up to be the stars of the show. It's not a passive game where you're witnessing something or taking it in and laughing at how funny it is. You're actively making it funny, whether it's like creating something with your friends. TKO is a perfect example of that, where it's like by nature a very simple activity, but just by combining pictures that people drew with random phrases, you've created kind of a language or inside joke or story within your group. So it feels very personal. And I think that's part of it too. It's like you want it to feel like we can let people make the games for themselves, make that experience very unique and personal.
That makes a lot of sense. When I'm playing a Jackbox game, I often find myself in the position where I'm asking myself, am I writing things for me or am I writing things for my friends? Sometimes I'm just like, I find this funny and I know no one else in the room is going to. And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm going to lock in and I'm going to like really play to the other players. But it really does give you an opportunity to play the way you want.
Yeah, that feels very much like a goal. Sometimes, again, there is a correct answer or there is a thing that you're striving to achieve. There's a mechanic that is you're trying to get points. You're trying to appeal to that. But then there is the opportunity, like in a Quiplash, where you're like, I don't think anyone's going to vote for this, but I'm going to say it because it's really tickling me or making me laugh. And then sometimes that ends up winning because you're just putting out like authentic things that are funny to you.
We're taking a moment to thank our sponsor, Morty. Morty is a free app for discovering, booking, tracking, and reviewing escape rooms, haunts, and other immersive social outings. Morty is available for all to use on its fantastic website experience, iPhone and Android apps. I believe in Morty so much that I have a stake in it as an advisor.
David, talk to me a little bit about the return on investment of the partner program at Morty. I know they sent you some figures.
Yeah, so Morty is saying that for the companies that have signed up for bookings through Morty, they're seeing roughly 18 times return on investment. That is a very large return on investment. I've worked with Google Ads and Yelp and some of these other things on other projects, and I've never seen numbers like that. It's rare to see. I don't know that it goes on indefinitely. These numbers are going to fluctuate from region to region, but that is really impressive.
If you're an escape room owner and you are looking to join the partner program, go to Morty and look up Morty for Business to find out how you can become a Morty partner and get your business featured.
You can learn more at morty.app/repod. That's REPOD to sign up and get a special badge for our listeners. Link and details in the show notes.
Each Jackbox game has a very distinct look and feel, including the themes, which range from murder dolls to cute cartoons to wizarding fantasy. How do you decide on the theme that goes with that particular game mechanic?
So again, it comes from the game team and early design conversations and the lead artist maybe coming in with something. Maybe it's the director having an idea. There's something naturally that comes up. But early on in like pre-production, we're digging into what we call the wrapper of the game. So whatever that is, that kind of like angle artistically that we're diving into or the feel of it comes from those early conversations. And things can evolve like as production goes on. But I always laugh specifically. My very first game that I directed was Job. And that was a game I had pitched to the company and they were like, would you like to direct it? And I was like, oh my gosh, no. And then I said yes. But it was me, sure, okay. And early conversations, and this just tickles me to this day, is Owen Watson, the lead artist, and I were talking and we're like, it's bees. It's obviously bees. And we had this like very strong bee aesthetic that we were like, this is the game. And then we were like playing around with ideas. Is it hive mind? Is it like it's bees? And probably like the first week, our audio lead, Brian, was like, what? Just very gently pushed back to be like, it's a job interview already. We're putting a hat on a hat. Is it bees? And we're like, You're right. It's not bees. It's not bees. And we just immediately pivoted to work culture and office space, like in a bit more of a fantastical way. And it was like, oh, yes. Again, then we're not over explaining. And then guess what? It probably would have been just fine if it was bees. But I like it so much better with us coming together as a full team to check each other on our own assumptions on things. And sometimes if we all start going down a rabbit hole of, it's got to be this and this is the thing, sometimes that absolutely is it. And then sometimes you just need someone to go, but is it bees? And then just that question unlocks something for you to go, no, I don't think it is.
When it comes to prototyping and testing, what's the process and how do you know when you have a winner?
So when games are pitched, they can be in all sorts of states. We have greenlit games that were not in a digital prototype yet, like a pure paper test. So you're just writing things on slips of paper and passing them around the room and doing that kind of experience. In addition to, again, more in the hybrid world, the paper tests have evolved into jam boards or murals or shared Google Docs or whatever it is that we're all operating in less of a formal prototype space. But we also have so many incredible engineers at the company that are, ready to dive in and create something sooner rather than later. So if the game feels like it needs that for proof of existence, like something simple that you can get the idea of the mechanic pretty strongly and it plays pretty well in the room, does not need a prototype, but something that maybe has more nuance or has an element that would be better proved by a prototype, then people jump on that pretty quickly in the process too and are able to get a basic idea of how it's going. So sometimes things start with a prototype and then get developed from there. Sometimes they start from the paper test and then eventually get the prototype, but everything will eventually have that digital prototype, but it just depends on the game as to when that happens in the process.
And how do you know when a game is ready to ship?
We hit the deadline. No, I think, again, we have very clear goals and we work really hard up until we're looking to ship the game. So if we're making a party pack, all of those teams are working simultaneously. We do a lot of company play tests. QA is essential in just diving in and making sure we're aware of any bugs and like things that need fixed. So I think really we try to lock it down, giving us ample time to check for more of just problems and things, like giving ourselves that space to like really gut check it before we would ship it. So the design is pretty locked down earlier on. Now, that being said, sometimes stuff comes up like halfway through. We may realize, going back to like Job, we had a completely different final round until halfway through the production cycle where we were like, it wasn't escalating. The enjoyment was going boop, boop. And then at the end, it was a satisfying like, versus feeling like it was building to an end. We simplified the final round to be something a little bit different because we weren't getting that energy we needed all the way through the game. But we didn't know that until we had played it a bunch and gotten to that point. It was something that we thought in the design was solid, and then it just wasn't playing as strongly. So then we make a change. And even though all of those prompts had been written, nothing is precious. You gotta get rid of it. And now it's this because it's whatever the game needs.
The Jackbox games come in a party pack where you're buying 5 games in a pack.
Yes.
And it does seem like there's a pattern with the types of games that you include in a pack. There's typically maybe a sequel to a previously popular game, plus an assortment of games with gameplay that lend themselves to other skill sets and styles of play. So how do you go about balancing the selection of games for a party pack?
So exactly that. In the past, when we've developed party packs, and I only say in the past because this year we're not releasing a traditional party pack. We're doing something a little bit different after 10. So just for this year, we've been trying some different things. And I don't know if you knew this, but the product that I'm working on has been very unique this year. We're releasing our first mature rated game. So it's called Jackbox Naughty Pack.
Whoa.
And I know, it's a bit spicy. And that has been my job this year. So it is a 3-pack. So again, it's something a little bit different for us. But traditionally speaking, the party pack model, 1 through 10, there's usually been an anchor title, which is usually a sequel. So the company, the studio, looks at maybe what our customers have been asking for. We have constant data coming in of what are our most played games, the ones that people are kicking off the most. And so you can look to all of that in addition to like our customer feedback surveys to be like, what is there a hunger for? What do people want? Or what haven't we visited in a while, to kind of mix it up. And so there'll be that sequel anchor title. And then beyond that, you build out the pack from there. So let's say it's Party Pack 6. We did Trivia Murder Party 2. So that was the kind of sequel. And knowing that's a trivia game, we're probably not going to have another trivia game in that pack. So when ideas are then being pitched, you're working towards the different types of games that might fill out the rest of that lineup. So do we have internally we call them sometimes joke machine games, like a game like a Quiplash or something where people are contributing and writing something funny? Do we have a drawing game? Do we have something that's a bit more of like social deduction or guessing? And those rules aren't hard and fast. Like we'll have games that kind of dip into like maybe multiple categories. In the past, we've had 2 different games that involve drawing in the same pack. But as long as there is something uniquely identifying about it beyond that mechanic, we try to line those up that way. So when the pitching happens, there's a green light committee. People are presenting these ideas and then things get greenlit. And then as the slots get filled, you see what else it needs. And then occasionally we have that wild card slot of something that maybe doesn't quite strongly fit into a category, but is something unique for us that we wanted to try for that particular pack.
Do you want to integrate tech into your game but don't really know where to start? Are you looking to take your experience to the next level with theatrical lighting and sound cues? Cogs by Clockwork Dog is an easy-to-use platform that will automate your escape room and immersive events. Their plug-and-play hardware works seamlessly with their software, so you can create a game with high-tech puzzles that will reliably trigger, complete with sound and lighting effects. Whether you're an absolute beginner or a seasoned pro, Cogs has a solution for you.
Cogs software includes a user-friendly DMX programmer for controlling lighting, smoke machines, and other DMX controllable devices. All of your low-voltage relay packs, dimmers, all of that stuff works on Cogs easily. With DMX, you have the capabilities for theatrical standard quality lighting effects, and there's no need to be afraid of the big, scary DMX, because it is really easy to do with Cogs. You can connect to a DMX device via the use of a node or dongle that pairs seamlessly with Cog software. DMX is what all of the most cinematic escape rooms use to control their lighting, like the room in Berlin.
Brandon Darkmore at The Room has just some of the best production value I've ever seen in an escape room.
It really does. If you want to know more, watch their video tutorials on cogs.show. It's a really great way to get you started.
REPOD listeners get 50% off the Cogs starter set, plus free shipping to the US. Use code REPOD at checkout. That's REPOD. For any questions about using Cogs or integrating tech into your escape rooms, make sure to join the vibrant community of creators on their Discord server. Learn more and start designing your game using their free tutorial by visiting cogs.show. Link and details in the show notes.
Changing gears, you're a longtime Second City performer. Talk to me about the way that Second City influences your creative process.
I moved to Chicago and I realized this weekend. I didn't realize it this weekend. I knew it, but I said it out loud this weekend and then it occurred to me and washed over me like a wave. I've been in Chicago 20 years and moved here for comedy to perform at Second City and feel very fortunate that was something I was able to do because it is a very small opportunity that not everybody, and there's a million hilarious people that I know that work and live in Chicago and have moved on to like LA, New York, and been very successful and never worked at Second City. So it's not the thing you have to do, but it was a goal and I really wanted to do it. And I was in the touring company for 3 years. I've done so many corporate gigs where you're going and doing a custom song or script for a company and you're like, I don't even know what these words mean, but they're loving it. And so I did that for years and then eventually got the offer to be in the resident cast of the ETC stage, which is there's 2 stages, a main stage and ETC. And I got that offer for ETC. I also got that offer when I was 9 months pregnant. So it was a wild journey and was very grateful that I was able to do that. I did 2 reviews there. I started a month after I had a baby. And I think it also informed what I had to say at that time and what kind of my perspective was, which was nothing I could have predicted given the timing and was really fun and cool opportunity to be able to go do a show and write a scene about a breast pump. And it was like, this is very real to me and will be very real to a bunch of people in this audience. So it was really cool. So I did that. And then after that, I think my sensibility and what I bring into the party game space is just a lot of those joyful improv mechanics and also the willingness to try things and not be so precious about it. Like when we're creating a Second City show, people may or may not know this, but a show gets locked down at a certain point, and that's the review that opens and gets performed for maybe a year, maybe a little bit less. But before that, they turn over the show from the old show by slowly replacing the scenes. So a new cast, maybe it's some of the old cast, some of the new cast, they'll start by doing the old show and then they'll start trying out things. So it's like you put it maybe in the improv set, maybe you put it directly into the show, but you're just slowly turning over that material until it transforms into a completely different review. So that is a period of time that we're called being in process. So early on, I told this story the other day and it brings me great joy. I don't know if you know Jack McBrayer, who is a very, very funny comedian. He was Kenneth from 30 Rock. He was the Page.
Yeah, of course.
Like, he's been in a million things. He's the voice of Fix-It Felix and Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes.
Like, he's
okay. Yes.
hilarious human being. I came to see ETC when I was in college and came to Second City, and he was on stage and had done a scene that was like the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I was crying, laughing, and took that with me and carried it in my heart for years. Then cut to, I'm working in the box office of a different theater over at IO as an intern, and he walks in and I just fangirled. I was like, I have to tell you. And I was telling him the scene I saw you do. It like was life-changing and I loved it. And he told me, he goes, we only did that scene 3 times and 2 times it didn't work and 1 time it worked. And you were there the night that it worked. And that's incredible. And we just started talking about it. And it was such like a wild thing to have this very unique shared experience with this human that no one else except for the people in that theater had seen that scene and ever would, because apparently it didn't do very well every other time they tried it. But since then, like I've talked to him a handful of times. He'll see me and go, zombie grandma. And I'm like, yeah. We just have this weird connection. So when I did Second City and even in my work after that, I have this joy of just trying something and saying, I don't know, just put it out there, see if it sticks, and someone might remember it. It might be special to someone. And now in applying to the gaming world, you need like more solid hits. So like in the way that Zombie Grandma went away for that Second City show, it probably also wouldn't stay, but you might learn something from it and then it turns into something else. So it's just that willingness to try things and not being afraid of failing to then get to the good stuff that really sticks with me.
You have a recurring guest role on the popular fantasy improv podcast, Hello from the Magic Tavern, where you play Flower, a foul-mouthed plant that picks fights with everyone, but can't really do much, well, because you're stuck in a pot. It is very funny. Could we get a little taste of the voice?
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. And I have to tell you, so again, this was like 8 years ago that we started this. And my character was in like episode 3. of the whole thing. And it was such a delight because those are my friends and they were just like, hey, we're doing this weird thing. Do you want to do a character? And it's like, sure, yeah. And again, thinking it was going to happen once and then we would never do it again because also, spoiler alert, they throw my character off a cliff at the end of that episode. So the fact that I even come back is a shock, let alone have come back many times over the years. So anything is possible. But I hadn't heard anything because they were just recording the first episode. So I had no basis of what they were doing or what their goal was or what the vibe was. So I wasn't actively trying to ruin it, but I was trying to ruin it in the most supportive, loving way possible and like waiting for them to tell me I was going too far, and they never did. So it was a very true exercise in love and trust of being with your friends, making something very silly and just going, we're all having fun. We're making each other laugh, and that's a joy. And so the fact that has carried over into 8+ years of all the weird things I've done being like, that's what people kind of know me from too, which is very funny because it's very different from my actual voice. I think I just tried to literally I was like, what is the dumbest thing I could do?
And it was this. It was just a flower that's so pissed off all the time. And she's very mad. And she's probably drinks too much, but it's perfectly fine because her friends accept her.
So that's the...
Am I flower?
Hello? Yes, maybe. See, it's just an offshoot of my own personality.
It's like looking into a mirror. What's happening? So, like most creative brainstorming type games, a background in improv is probably a huge advantage. Do you have any tips for Jackbox players on how they can overcome that writer's block that we get sometimes when we're looking at a prompt? We don't know what to say. I don't know how to write the funniest quip that will win over all of my friends. How do you quickly come up with really witty and relevant answers?
I think that, first of all, I'm not always witty or relevant when I'm playing Quiplash. I always joke that like when I play, I'm like, oh, I got one good one and like one that is not very good, but it's in my own head. So I think trying not to judge yourself, just going in and truly writing something that brings you laughter and joy, writing something that you think your friends are going to like totally understand or get. So again, just that kind of what we talked about earlier, that authentic response. Because sometimes even the most unhinged or like nonsensical responses are the funniest ones. And you can't predict. In the same way in improv, you don't know what's going to get a laugh. So you just have to be in the moment and just doing it. And then you're grateful if it does get a hit, but you can't live or die by that. You have to just push forward and put out there what you think is going to be funny or what's going to really resonate. And the same thing with the games. I think if you're just playing honestly and fun and not overthinking it, and just because the nice thing too is it'll move on, so once you kind of do something and you write something, it's done. You're done with it. You did the hard part and then you can enjoy it and then move on and do it again. So I think knowing that too, that improv has a very strong sense of the most wonderful performers are the ones who are not afraid to fail. Like you just put it out there, and if it's bad, it's bad. And then you laugh about that. And so I think that there's a gift in all of that.
There is a concept in Nordic LARP that I'm a really big fan of called play to lose, which for an American audience has been reframed as playing for the experience. We have a whole episode interviewing Johanna Koljonen back in season 3 about this, and she's a genius, and I love that episode. But
that's amazing.
When I approach Jackbox Games and other similar games, I'm not really trying to win. Like maybe you win, you probably won't. I'm just trying to have a good time. And I think that is a thing that helps me get out of my own head, is just accepting that the only thing that matters here is that me and my friends are having a good time. That's the thing that matters. And winning and losing in this is pretty arbitrary in a lot of ways. And people's votes would probably change if they saw the prompts a minute later. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're playing some grand strategy game here. Just have a good time.
I think that is exactly how I play as well. And it's funny because when we're developing the games, that is one of our North Stars, is just that experience. But then there is also an effort, because we have people internally at the company that absolutely play to win and need that strong point clarification. And like, I need to know how I can win this game, whether it's within my control or not. So we have that balance of appealing to players that are like, I really don't care, I'm going to have fun. And sometimes we also reward those players with things like likes in some of our games. So it's like you can pick the right answer, but then also give a little nod to something you really enjoyed or made you laugh. So again, knowing that different things like that are appealing to different kinds of players. So we try to, like, without pushing too far one way or another, accommodate both kinds of players to have the tools there so that all people can come to it and go, oh, okay. And it's great for me because I love that. Like when we're testing, especially early on, I will be so into that experiential part. And then someone will ask a question of, okay, but what is my motivation here? How do I get the points? And that's a great gut check to be like, is what we're presenting making sense? Do players feel like they know what they need to do here if that is their motivation? Early on, I directed the rhythm game Dodo Re Mi, and I think I had suggested that we should penalize players for hitting wrong notes was like something early on that I was like, oh, we should absolutely dock them. That'd be hilarious. And then a lot of players in the moment were like, that would make me so sad. Like that would be such a miserable experience for me. And I was like, you're right. I had not considered that because I didn't care about the points, knowing that that's not going to appeal to everybody else's experience. So you want to find that right balance. And so we found a way to accommodate that you can hit wherever as long as you're also hitting the notes accurately. And then you get the joy of the chaos sounds in addition to the accuracy points.
Feels like that was a good note.
It was a good note. So, I mean, you know what? We do have a thing in our culture of that feedback is a gift, and it truly is. It's good to hear what people are experiencing, good and bad. And we do a lot of internal and external play testing throughout our development process. That's what's the thing that we think is the closest to achieving that good, solid, understandable, fun experience.
What's the most surprising note you've ever received while developing a game?
Oh my gosh. So many. What was it? No, this was, I don't know if I can speak to the most surprising note, but sometimes we just set rules for ourselves. And back to Job, there's a sense of like sentient office supplies in the world. And so when the artist was creating the art and putting eyes on things, I think at one point he was like, is everything alive? And I think we settled on some things are alive. And that was good. It was like we then didn't feel the pressure that every single item in the game had to have eyes. It was like, you know what? For our truth, yes, some things are alive. And that was sort of it, you know?
It would have gotten weird if the paper was alive.
It'd be too much.
Because it's going to get put through the shredder.
Yes.
There was a time when I was done early with my questions. I was just staring at the animation, and all of a sudden the desk reached out and ate something. And I was like, did you guys see that? Like, what?
We, our artist created, we called them gags. I think we had them numbered. So he had planned, and this goes back to the scope question. It's like, how many gags can we have in the kind of waiting moment? Because it is an experiential thing. If you're done with your work, we require you to kind of like write a lot of stuff. So people are finishing at different paces. So it's like, what's going on? Does it feel active? And so it is such a joy for us to create those little things that occur in that. And so, yeah, that was one too. I definitely we had to set some things for ourselves too of being like, how brutal is this environment? Because that desk has seen some things. Like if you look at that desk's face, it's pretty intense.
Let's talk about some of the games that you have directed, starting with Job. In it, every player is simultaneously applying for a job and evaluating one another for that very job. The catch is that the answers that you give are shredded, and everyone gets a selection of words from each other's responses to rearrange into answers. And then the additional twist is that you can also steal words from the questions themselves. Nearly any word in the game's interface is usable. Talk to me about the development of this design, because I love it.
Thank you. It is it's one of my favorite games by it, and I'm completely biased. But it came from, and this goes to show, again, you never know like what idea is going to hit or what the thing is that is the game we're going to go with. But early on, I was pitching a couple games, and I remember there was one that was more complicated. So I'm with like the writing staff and we're talking through ideas. I couldn't even tell you what that game is now, but I was like describing, I was like, and then it's this, and then you're going to this, and then this thing. And I was like, or I have a game idea where you're just going to use each other's words to answer questions. And everyone's like, let's play that one. So we ended up doing that, and it felt so fun. And a big part of that inspiration came from an improv game where you get suggestions of out of context lines from an audience and then sprinkle them on the floor, and then players have to work them into the scenes.
It feels like an improv game.
Yes. So that was where it came from, was like trying to make a party game off of that feeling of being like, you're trying to justify something out of context in a different way. So it was like, how can we do that? And so then there was just something nice about job interviews. The context made sense to us. And so it was like, you're just being able to answer these questions. You don't have to be creative. It's really just word providers. And once people know that too, people just go on, which is very fun to see.
At what point in the development process did the idea come about to allow players to steal words from the user interface? Because that to me is this additional twist on it that takes the game from being clever to being genius.
So I, at that time, and this is something that I do a lot now, is play other games and try to like just video games, like just playing games to see what I like about those games or what kind of like I can glean of the experience. And at that time, I was playing a game called There Is No Game. And this game blew my mind in the sense that you're constantly messing with the UI. So you're just always trying to break things. It has a real escape room element to it. Puzzles appear, but you're not sure what it is. And then you're just encouraged to mess with the words on the screen or the UI to break something. And then this is going to fall down, and then you can use this. And so that was such a fun experience. Part of me then begged the question, can we allow players to pull from any part of the UI on the controller? And we had a fantastic infrastructure engineer that said, yeah, I'd love to work on that. So there was that inspiration of that. And then she went off and made it. And that was early in the prototype. And then it also just served that purpose of, we were feeling sometimes when we were playtesting that people were disappointed in like the words they were getting from other people, because you can't control that. And so you have people that love that chaos, and then other people being like, well, I could have done a good job if you all wrote better sentences. So we give the player a little bit more control by having a few things that they can access if they know to do that. So that was a huge part of it, was just number one, it solves that for players, especially like we made sure to have a few essential words in those instructions that are on the controller that might bother somebody if they don't have and I can't even think right now what's on there, but something like a the or a period.
I really appreciated it.
Brooke, you also worked on Roomerang, which is like a mashup of Quiplash turned into an elimination-style reality TV show. And you play tested it with my friends over at RHAP, which is a Survivor reality show podcast network. And I also played an early test run with a group of strategic-minded Survivor players, which was really fun, and which is how I met you. How did the feedback from a group of reality superfans and players help shape the game?
It was monumentally helpful. So that game was pitched by myself and two other members of the team, Alex and Tim, and we all worked on the game together. It was originally Alex had come to the group saying, I want to do like a reality show inspired game. And he had a different iteration of it. And this is also what happens at Jackbox, is sometimes we pitch games and then it doesn't get greenlit for that year, but that doesn't mean that it won't necessarily be great for another year or be reworked in a way. We often don't talk about failed pitches because they could become wonderful games given time and just the space for it. Roomerang had been pitched. It was originally called Here to Make Friends. And then the next year, we all picked it back up and we're like, what if, again, like it feels more like a role-playing game. Like it's less of a ranking people and also trying to solve for one of the tenets of a Jackbox game. We don't really eliminate people. Like everybody plays the whole time. So then how do we make an experience where everybody's still included, but it kind of models itself after an elimination style reality show? And again, I am a huge fan. I love Survivor. I love Big Brother. Currently watching Claim to Fame. I love all those kinds of shows. And so selfishly for me, I was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing opportunity to reach out to this world that I also really enjoy and feel like could benefit in making something that you don't even have to know reality shows to appreciate the game, because it can be just a fun experience of going after your friends and role playing. And we've really seen it take off in a way that the people that love it really do love it. And I'm glad it's found its community. And things that we even had talked about early on in design, where we were like, should we make it that you have to be anonymous in the game? Is it fun for people to come in with their own names or play as a fully different character? Like, what is the correct way to play? And instead of like forcing a mode, you can just do that with your friend group. So we give you the opportunity to keep your name in the lobby or change it to something else if you and your friends decide you want to play it anonymously. And we've seen people do it that way as well. So having RHAP and all the wonderful podcasters come in and play it, they could speak to, ooh, like this makes me think of this, or like this advantage was not so satisfying, or this thing made sense to me and I felt overwhelmed with this information, or this was just enough. So it was a perfect mix of wonderfully helpful external playtest feedback that we would get from a group of players, but also having that niche like knowledge of the world we were trying to emulate a little bit in the most like snackable way. So it was really great. And then, yeah, when you came on and all the players came on, that was like such a delight, especially because for us being fans of that kind of style of show anyways, I felt like your group especially jumped in and just started going after each other immediately. And that brought me so much joy. I was like, they get it. They love it. So it was really fun to watch.
I forgot how ruthless everybody was. So if anybody's interested, you can watch this. It's on YouTube. It's an hour-long video. So we had played it before this interview. We were prepping for the interview and we played it. And I think that we played it with a group of people that were like, I don't really get it. You know what I mean? It's like you're answering questions. And for me, I felt that way a little bit until David eliminated me. And after that, it was like on. And that informed.
Why'd you steal my bracelet, Peachy?
That informed every answer that I gave was just some smarmy remark about David. And I think that was really the brilliance of it, is now you're creating this opportunity for drama with the eliminations, because everybody feels bad. The first time you eliminate someone, you feel bad. And after that, it's all revenge. Like,
especially because they're not going anywhere. That was always like the first time people play, they're like, oh, we feel so bad. And then exactly that turn of being like, first of all, I'm back and I'm coming after you.
It was very fun.
Oh, I'm so glad.
In your game, Dodo Re Mi, which is a phenomenal name. It's a musical rhythm game where everyone chooses a different unusual instrument, including wailing cats, constant screaming, and the kazoo, along with more traditional instruments like drums and shredding guitar. It plays very much in the vein of a comedy-forward rock band. The music rhythm genre is new for Jackbox Games. What were the goals and challenges when moving into a genre like this?
This was the first time that I directed a game that I had nothing to do with the pitch of the game. It came from Chase, one of our fantastic engineers, and he built this prototype, and it was so much fun, and it got such laughs in the room that we're like, I think the studio just said, oh, we have to try this. This is going to be a unique experience for us, and there's a lot of ingenuity around it already. And that was the amazing thing for me, as coming in from the creative aspect and always having a mind on the experience, especially not having a ton of experience myself with rhythm games prior to working on the game. I was always coming in with the idea of, okay, can anybody jump in? Does this make sense? And it really did. Like, it naturally fit to be able to create a communal experience. Chase had it in mind from the beginning that he wanted the feeling of just jamming with your friends. So when we went into it, that was a really big goal, was just like, how can we feel like it's a bunch of people just being able to play something together? So it was important to have that sense of play in addition to choice. So when you look at all the instruments, it's like you can truly pick the easiest one or something super, super complicated and hard, depending on what you want to do. And you don't get penalized for any of that. It's like the harder ones you can score higher. So to try to reward the effort of really picking something in the extra hard category, you can get rewarded for that. But you can equally contribute to the success of the team. Because again, the other element was, how do we make this a game with a goal beyond just playing the song? And if you're all working together, then you're trying to feed this very hungry plant that if you're not playing well enough, he's going to eat you. And that's the goal. If it made sense to us, we're like, this clearly is something we can all relate to. So that was the fun of just making sure we were putting all the elements in that made sense to make that happen. And then also throughout the process, tweaking the success rate. Our engineers were brilliant. Michael was constantly like changing the numbers of the percentages of how accurate you needed to be, or like what percentage of accuracy you needed to get in order to survive, so that it wasn't too easy but not impossible.
It feels impossible. It's so hard.
It is hard.
One of my favorite innovations in that game was the way that at the very beginning, it had you tap on your input device 3 times to adjust for and account for latency, which is the big nemesis in rhythm games. So I thought that there was an elegance in that I just really appreciated, because when I saw what the concept was, I was like, I don't know how they're going to go and adjust for that across multiple players who are each using 2 different devices. How do you do that? And that was a really cool innovation.
My mind was blown with seeing what the team was able to do, and knowing that there was a lot of musicians on the team. Not only our audio lead, who composed all these songs. We did a mix, as you could see, of Jackbox theme songs, original songs, and then public domain songs done in a different genre. So that was the library that we explored. And Nate, our audio lead, was just like making these incredible tunes. There was a specific tool that was made to make the beat maps so that anybody on the team could go in there and do that. And also, so take the actual music that was put in and then assign the hits and like where they were, how many lanes. I learned so much because, again, this was not my particular wheelhouse, which also hopefully provided a sense of like me being like, hey, I'm a player that's never played a rhythm game. How does this make sense to me? So we were doing a lot of gut checks.
How does?
And I was having a blast. Like, was I the best at it? Absolutely not. Did I have a lot of fun and felt like I got better? 100%. So it was fun for me to come in with that perspective to help, again, gut check our own assumptions on what we were communicating, how it worked. And then, yeah, that sync up moment was essential. And that was like from the get-go, an important element that we were trying to solve for. And it went through some different iterations, but what they did was magic in being able to, again, make sure that like what you're seeing on your own screen, like that tap in is lining it up so that it feels satisfying and you're actually playing.
That's really smart.
It's a very cool piece of tech going on there.
So, Brooke, what comes next for you and for Jackbox Games?
Again, we just actually today, so I know it will not be appropriate for when this airs, but you'll know it has happened. But as we are recording this, we have released a mega picker, which is something new to us. So if you have our games on Steam, you can now launch them from a unified platform, like a unified space. So we created a mega picker so that you don't have to go and open up separate party packs. All the games will be there and launchable from one unified space, and it's free. So you can get it on Steam, and that is something I know folks have asked for a lot. So that's something that just came out. In addition to the product I mentioned earlier, I'm working on the Naughty Pack. That is forthcoming very soon. And I'm very excited about it. I think it's a lot of fun. If it's your thing, I think you will love it in the sense of having kind of a spicier adults version of our games. Because again, our games are mostly rated, I think all of them up until this one are T for teen with family-friendly filters. So we just tried something new this year with making an adult-focused game a separate product for folks that want to play that kind of game. It's fun.
I feel like if you're playing Jackbox and it doesn't become an adult game, like, are you even playing correctly?
That was, again, like this product came out of customer feedback, people saying, yes, we would be very interested in this. We're already doing it, so we would love that kind of game. And so it was fun that the studio said, yeah, let's make one. Let's see what we can do with that. So yeah, it's exciting and just something new. I don't have anything else specific to announce, but we're always working on new stuff, which is really cool. The studio is always iterating and designing and trying to figure out what is next.
Can't wait to check it out. What is the best way for people to follow you or your work and to connect with you?
I am still on Twitter, which is dicey at best, but I am there, and you can follow me at Brook Breit, where I am mostly doing jokes because that's where I just like to release my humor, and that's what I use that space for. Otherwise, if you are into watching a person casually play video games maybe once a week, I stream on Twitch. You can find me at Brook Breit on Twitch as well, where I've been playing a lot of Lethal Company with friends, which I enjoy a lot. And some puzzle games. There is an incredible game that has such escape room sensibilities called Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
I knew it was coming.
Oh, you knew it. Have you played it?
I have not yet played it, but literally every single person I know has been telling me to play it. So I could tell from your tone that I was about to be told I needed to play Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
And I am here to tell you that you have to play Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. It's beautiful. It is haunting and wonderful and so hard. This is a game that I have a written notebook full of notes, and it makes me do math. I'm like, this game is making me do math equations. And I was like, do I like that? No. But am I doing it? Yes. And it's so much fun. But it's just, it's puzzles. You're a woman in a mysterious European hotel, and you just got to figure it out. It's gorgeous, and I can't recommend it enough. But yeah, I love different games. I get fully immersed in playing just video games that are not the genre I work on. I'm a big fan of Hades and Inscription and other games like that. And so I try to find games like that to play. So yeah, come follow me on Twitch. It's casual over there.
We have a Hades question we're going to ask you in the bonus show.
Oh, I'm excited.
Brooke, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to you and the entire Jackbox Games team for making all of these wonderful games that bring people together. I think one of the things that keeps striking me as I've been preparing for this interview is the amount of times that I have seen Jackbox Games be there for people when they're kind of in a bad place. There's something about these games that really works well when people aren't their most functional. And I think there's a comfort to them. There's a humor to them. And I'm so glad that they exist. So thank you for that and for sharing all of your insights with us.
That is so incredibly kind of you to say. And first of all, I was so excited. This was on my calendar, and I was just losing my mind with excitement for getting to talk to both of you. And this was so much fun to do. And yeah, the studio itself is made up of such wonderful people that really care about these games and care about the products we make and play them as well. And again, like I said, when we're creating games, we're playing them together all the time in the same way that we hope people do once they're out in the world. So no, I love hearing that, and can never hear enough of that because it makes it really cool to get to be a part of it.
This episode of Reality Escape Pod is produced by Teresa Piazza with support by Lisa Spira and Adil Rafai. We're edited by Steve Ewing of Stand Inside Media, music by Ryan Elder, logo by Janine Proct, and all of this is brought to you by RoomEscapeArtist.com, your home for well-researched, rational, and reasonably humorous escape room and immersive gaming content and events. Reality Escape Pod is mainly supported by Patreon backers. Creating these episodes takes a lot of time, care, and money. We're invested in creating a robust community of creators and enthusiasts, and we need your help. A lot of big content creators, they reach a point where their Patreon is so big that they don't know who is joining. I promise you, we are aware every single time someone backs us. We know who our long-term backers are. We send out handwritten letters, wax sealed by hand, to every single person who backs us on Patreon. We as a team celebrate every single person who joins because it means so much to us. The ongoing support that we get from our patrons is everything. It is so hard building a media business in this era, and we are only able to do it because of the continued support of so many wonderful people. And if you have not yet joined, I hope that you can consider it if it's something that you can afford. And for everybody who is supporting, we do provide a lot of extra content that we put a lot of love into. Every single episode has a bonus after show. In between seasons, we also make extra bonus content that only goes out to patrons. And we also have, for our higher level supporters, the Spoilers Club, where we dig deep into escape rooms and talk about everything that went into the making of them, the running of them, and the behind the scenes with the creators. Both shows are a labor of love, just like the one that you just listened to. To learn more, visit patreon.com/roomescapeartist. Link and details in the show notes. I would also like to thank our highest level Patreon supporters: Karen, Byron Delmonico, Mark from Keystone Escape Games, Paula Swan, Rex Miller, Chris Laughlin, Panic Room, Pat at Olivier Escape, Escaparium, Breakout Games, and Derek Tam. Thank you for your ongoing support. If you're looking for a way to support Reality Escape Pod that doesn't cost a dime, go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a 5-star review. Bonus points if you say some kind words. We put so much love into every single episode, and it means the world when you tell other people that this show is worth listening to. There's a lot of podcasts out there, and social proof matters. Your words matter. They help us immensely.
I have been to the Escape Game in Chicago and done 2 different rooms there, always with my parents. I think we did it for Mother's Day. And 2 separate times, my brother and I both physically pushed my mother away from finishing putting in a code because she was not doing it correctly.
Oh no.
And it has been held over our heads justifiably because it was very bad behavior and I regret it deeply. But I have tried to also express that she wasn't doing it fast enough. She always brings it up. She's like, "Oh, an escape room. Are you going to push me out of the way?" And I said, I don't know, because I don't know what the vibe is until we get there. So I will say that the second time we went in, I was a little bit more hands off. I really did take in things and take my time. But the second time we did it, it was very fun because someone had to come over the announcement and yell at my father because he was poking at something he shouldn't have been poking at. And it was like, please don't touch that. Please step away from whatever you're putting your hands into. You might get hurt. So yeah, we're very good at escape rooms.